who's the guy with all the dirt on Hollywood's biggest scandals?
I'm AJ Benza, and I'll flip you. Heads I win, tails you lose.
What does he know?
Let me tell you something. You haven't lived until you've been thrown out of an orgy for being too funny.
Sometimes you gotta go to an author, TV host, and bigger-than-life personality to learn. Fame is a bitch.
I told you one of my favorite expressions, nothing happens, and nothing happens, and then everything happens, has never been more appropriate. 1 week, Hollywood's blown up, then it's DC, then it's academia, then it's television, the media, etc. How long did you think it would take before the fashion industry, maybe the dirtiest of them all, would get a pop in the paper? Well, fellas, drop your socks and hide your cocks. This next one is a doozy. I'm AJ Benza, and this is Fame is a Bitch.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and in '09 it was me, your fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when one of my embers landed on dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Hot on the heels of the fashion industry turning its back on pig photographer Terry Richardson, now top photographer Bruce Weber finds himself in the hot seat. And there's been an explosive report that a model named Jason Boyce filed suit against Weber in New York State Supreme Court. Boyce's suit names Weber and his production company, Little Bear Incorporated. It also names the modeling agency at the time that he worked with, Soul Artist Management, and its founder and head, Jason Canner. They're named as well. So the suit revolves around an incident that he says occurred in 2014, and the complaint reads that Boyce was the victim of casting couch practices by the defendants. Upon information and belief are prevalent in the modeling industry, and he suffered humiliation, emotional anguish, lost economic opportunities, including the end of his modeling career in New York. So Jason Boyce says the incident with Weber, who's, by the way, you've seen his photographers. He's a brilliant photographer, best known for his work in Vogue and Rolling Stone. It occurred in 2014 at the Manhattan studio that Weber owns. Now, this model had to know that Weber always shoots the most suggestive homoerotic stuff on the planet. It's always guys with their hand in their underwear holding their package. Always. I mean, young guys with their pants down. You see the crack of their ass. They're all like 17. If pedophilia had a campaign pamphlet, Weber would have been the house photographer. I'm not at all shocked by what this model says happened. I'm shocked that he's shocked. So here it is. So Three years ago, Boyce arrives at Weber's studio, and Weber closes the door behind him, and two of them are alone in the back room. So far, so good. By the way, Boyce was 28 at the time. Weber was 68. 40 years. So after snapping a few shots, and this guy's a beautiful, steely-eyed blonde model, you know, he's been in Lexus ads and Amazon ads. Weber says to Boyce, "You're very tense." And he straddles him. And he rubs oil on his forehead. It's never a good sign when a man's got a bottle of oil standing above you. They snap some more photographs, and Weber suddenly orders Boyce to remove his shirt and pants. Just take them off. Even though it's customary that a photographer will tell the agency and the model there's going to be some nudity. But he didn't say that. He was that turned on, apparently. So Boyce obeys Weber, and he's thinking what his agent said. You got to nail this shoot, man. It's Bruce fucking Weber. You got to nail it, bro. So the kid from Oklahoma literally just came off a turnip truck, okay? And when Weber asked them to expose his genitals, the kid freaked out and he got really tense. And Weber started to ride him again. He's like, "Listen, you got to do what I say." And they take more photographs. And then Weber instructs Boyce to put his hands on himself. And he says, "Put your hands wherever you feel your energy go." So Boyce puts his hand on his heart, which most guys would do. Wrong. Weber grabs his arm and moves it back down to Boyce's balls. Then he grabs his arm and starts to move it up and down so he can watch Boyce stroke himself. Then Weber, and this must be the coup de grace, he moved Boyce's hand to his own groin and he put the model's fingers in his mouth. And now Boyce is terrified, repulsed, out of his mind. And Weber whispers, "If you just had confidence, you'd go really far. How far do you want to make it? How ambitious are you?" But with the fingers in his mouth, it must have sounded like, if you have confidence, this is a real talk. This is so gross. This poor kid is trembling at this point, and he can't move. And Weber gets up, takes his fingers out of his mouth. He says, you know what? We're done. Put your pants back on. We're done. So Weber goes from faggy to fucky in 10 seconds. But before Boyce could leave, Weber grabs him again, kisses him hard on the mouth. It's always hard on the mouth. No one kisses soft anymore. The next day, Boyce's agent's like, how did it go, man? And he texts back, weird. And it didn't sit well with him. Apparently, this was the beginning of the end of this kid's modeling career. But Weber kept trying to contact him. And he would always try to contact him on FaceTime. And by the way, what's with regular people calling me on FaceTime? See, you got to stop this already. I'm not answering the phone so you could see me talk while I'm shoveling food in my mouth or taking a shit. Or I'm not doing it. You don't have to see me. Just talk to me. Unless you're making your kids talk to Nona and Papa or your husband's calling from Afghanistan, stop with the FaceTime. Anyhow, Weber kept trying to reach out to Boyce through FaceTime for months. And every time that happened, Boyce would pick up. I don't know why he'd pick up, but he'd pick up outside and make it very visible so no shit could go down. But apparently and eventually, Boyce, the paperwork says, felt intense dread at the thought of a modeling career in an industry where Mr. Weber was considered by many to be the top photographer and primary champion of male models. And he was worried he would continue to run into Weber throughout his career. And for that, he experienced anxiety, depression, all sorts of stress. He moves back to California, done with modeling. His agent drops him in 2016. His career is dead. But the suit also alleges that Weber had engaged in similar conduct with other male models. Of course he did. So Weber's about to go down. It's going to get worse before it ever gets better. But it ain't going to get better with Bruce Weber. Only question, why didn't people understand Weber's company name, Little Bear? You think that's because he likes Goldilocks? You got to know what that name insinuates, people. Weber is a short, stocky, hairy gay man. I know he's married to Nan Bush, but she should be called Nan Beard, to be frank. But the slang that homosexuals use for short, hairy, stocky men is bear. Are we clear now? But this is not the only photographer that does shit like this. There was a photographer, world-renowned, Patrick de Marchalier. When I was hanging around with models and dating them in the 90s, man, they all was shot by Patrick, and they all had the same story. And by the way, when he called to shoot you, your career was about to explode. So everybody wanted to go shot by Patrick. But everybody knew they had to go through what Patrick liked to do. And that was to take out his big, hairy French cock while the shoot was taking place. He had no qualms about it. These are 18, 19-year-old girls, and they're in a foreign country, France, Italy, who knows, the Seychelles, and there's Patrick's prick. And as the shoots would go deeper into the day, apparently he'd get hard sometimes. So these poor girls are trying to sell cold cream or perfume, and they're staring at this guy's big dick. Unbelievable. I tell you, photographers are notorious for this. When I was 19, 20, I took a shot, my first shot at acting. I had to get the good headshots taken in New York City. Found a great photographer, a guy named Van Williams. Classic. I mean, he's got to be dead by now. He was like 75 years old when he shot me. But I go to his studio in New York, and it's a little cramped little office, and the whole place is, there's all pictures of actors he shot. In his career. You see pictures of Gene Hackman, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. It's mind-boggling, and it fucking makes you feel like, holy shit, I could be one of those guys. So he tells me, let's shoot. I say, what do I need? He goes, bring a leather jacket, a pair of jeans, a T-shirt, but bring shorts. Bring plenty of shorts. It was November in New York. You don't wear shorts, but what the fuck do I know? I want to be a star. I go home, jeans, jacket, about 3 pair of black shorts. Now, back then, in the 80s, shorts were very short. They weren't down to the knees, okay? This wasn't hip-hop. So we're shooting, and, of course, I do the leather jacket shoot. Then it's about my shorts. Take your shirt off. It's November. It's cold. 38 degrees. I've got no shirt on with little short shorts. And he's shooting me alongside a motorcycle. And I had a decent physique back then, but why did he need to see me in short shorts in November against a motorcycle? But as he's shooting me, he's going, that's exactly where I shot Bobby. Hey, Gene Hackman was on those exact monkey bars that you're at now. This is perfect. He's looking down into his Hasselblad camera. You see that big mane of white hair. And you stop and think, what would a better field for a pedophile be to work in? Modeling, male modeling. Jesus Christ, it's like nirvana for them. And listen, Tom Arnold, changing the subject, continues to send out tweets that end up raging out of control like the wildfires we're having right now out here in California. This time, Tom is saying radio host and CNN's John Phillips and former Trump guy Roger Stone apparently secretly coached Leanne Tweeden, coached and coaxed her to show that picture she had of Al Franken almost groping her. And as a result, that picture got Al Franken to recently resign. And he tweets this stuff, and it gets like 27,000 likes in a day. And then publications like Deadline.com and InfoWars pick it up. And what the fuck? That's not journalism, guys. You can't just run with a story that's unfounded, that's not vetted, not checked. This is so fucking dangerous. First off, I know John Phillips, okay? I used to contribute to the radio show he has with Jillian Barbary on KABC out here in L.A. for 3 years. Great times with those two. Roger Stone has never met Leanne Tweeden, ever. John Phillips has not talked to Leanne Tweeden in months. Leanne Tweeden decided to come out and show this picture because she felt she had a kinship with other women who've gone through this stuff. And the truth is, Leanne Tweeden told Sean Hannity about this picture with Franken years ago, okay? All the good old boys at Fox knew about this picture. There's a saying in the industry, if you want a rumor to get out, telephone, telegraph, tell Hannity. Okay, so the point is, everybody knew about Leanne's pic with Franken. So Phillips and Stone didn't coach her, but that didn't stop Tom from doing the true life thing that he does. But listen, before any of you start celebrating about Franken stepping down, be careful. I've long believed that the Democrats are going to knock down a few of their own so that they can eventually make their way back to all those women who spoke out against Trump last year. You watch. This is all coming back to Trump. A few Dems are going to get tossed, and then they're going to turn their horses toward Trump. They'll say, look, hey, listen, we knocked a few of our guys off. Fair is fair. And that would certainly be the final boom after all these early winter fireworks going off. If all this ends with the president stepping down, remember where you heard this. Sometimes you got to give up a bishop and a queen if you want to topple the other guy's king. I'm AJ Benza. This is Fame is a Bitch. While we're on the subject of poor performance, let's turn to ABC's longtime reporter Brian Ross. Ross was suspended for 4 weeks with pay recently. He reported incorrectly that Trump, when he was still a candidate for president, had told Mike Flynn to make contact with the Russians. Now, that would have been a big development in the ongoing investigation over whether Trump and his campaign worked with Russians to influence the election. However, instead, Ross corrected his story, based on an unnamed source, by the way, to say that Trump's instructions came when he was president-elect, not candidate. That's a big difference. It was immediately seized upon by Trump as an example of fake news, even with a suggestion that the false report was a factor in that day's stock market tumble. And Trump tweeted that anybody who lost money in the market on that day should consider suing ABC for damages because of Brian Ross's story. Now, about a year and a half ago, Brian Ross reached out to me. Never met the guy. He had his assistant find me, and he wanted to interview me about Donald Trump stuff. And what do I know? I know you know him. What can you tell me? And I entertained it. He came out to L.A., we had a nice dinner. The wine was pouring. And we were telling Trump stories. We were telling journalism stories. Those nights are great. I love talking to old journalists who've seen everything. And Brian Ross has. But before I went, I called the guy I talked to you about last show, my journalism godfather, Richie Esposito. I said, Brian Ross wants to talk to me about Trump. He said, AJ, be careful. I said, I'm fine. He goes, no, listen, be careful. Brian's a killer. He doesn't approach you unless he sees a kill spot. I said, Richie, I got this. He said, okay. So Brian flies out to L.A. We go to a restaurant. We're having dinner. The wine's flowing. It's a great night. And his questions are getting deep and crazy. And I'm dodging him here and there. I know how to talk. So at the end of the dinner, Brian says to me, look, I really want to use you on a piece we're going to run on 2020. okay, the night of the inauguration. I said, great. That sounds amazing. So we'll be in touch. His crew tells me we're going to shoot on a bar in Venice. And, okay, I go there. I meet the female producer, and she goes, Brian's not going to make it. He's going to be speaking in your ear while you stare at the camera. I'm like, okay, fuck. This is not easy. It's very disorientating to hear someone's voice and not speak to their face. You're not on your best at that point. You're on your heels. So he already had me. So Richie was right. This guy knew what the fuck to do. So now the cameras start to roll, and Brian comes in my ear, and this is a very different Brian than I met at the restaurant. This guy's questions are tough, they're deep, they're probing. He's got a purpose. And at that point, I said, this motherfucker's trying to take me down and make me look foolish, and in this process, destroy Trump. And I successfully dodged these questions. The way I did it was, every time he asked me something, I leveled him. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? That has nothing to do with shit, Brian. I basically didn't answer anything. I made a mockery of the whole thing. They wrapped it up in 5 minutes. I was back in the town car and headed back home. The whole segment was tossed, obviously. So, sorry, you're going to fuck me, I'm going to fuck you back. But because Ross ran with that big exclusive, Donald Trump asked Mike Flynn to basically collude with Russia, the stock market did go way down. The financial markets did have a heart attack, and it was all untrue. But I wonder, did anybody profit from that well-executed bad reportage? And maybe did Brian Ross make any dough the day the markets died? Speaking of dying, a great porn star named August Ames recently killed herself, suicide, by hanging last week after she couldn't take the bullying that came from social media. You see, this girl didn't want to shoot a scene with a guy she heard did gay porn on the side. She didn't like that level of danger. Can you blame her? So she went on Twitter and basically said, to the girl who's shooting my scene tomorrow instead of me, be careful because the male performer shoots gay porn on the side. Immediately, the internet went crazy. Twitter, everybody started calling her a homophobe, making all these gay slurs and shit. And that's not the way the girl lived her life. She's not a homophobe, but I don't blame her for saying what she said. Fuck that. But that bully behavior and that mob mentality was too much for her to take. So she reached for a rope. 23 years old, recently married. I mean, the background on this girl is not that good. But look, she had no relationship with her father. Apparently, she had a gropey grandfather who, when she was 14 or something, told her, if you take off your pants and your top, I'll let you have a line of this cocaine. Anyhow, she does it. And she liked it. And so did Grandpa. And things got out of hand. Eventually, the girl worked up the courage to tell her dad that Grandpa groped me. The father said, you're a fucking liar. You bring it up again, I'll disown you. But he basically went ahead and disowned her anyhow. He got remarried, and he was done with her. Now, look, August Ames admittedly said on a podcast recently that she was bipolar, and she had some attitude and mental problems because of her past. I got a little obsessed with this girl when I first saw her on a porn channel, RedTube.com. I know every guy out there knows RedTube. And now your wives do too, and your girlfriends. Sorry. But she was just so fresh and so new. She was like the girl next door to the girl next door because she enjoyed herself on film. You could see it. She enjoyed kissing the male performer. And that matters to me when I watch porn. I don't like it all cut and dried. The way she spoke to the men that were performing was really sexy. It wasn't so staged. It really felt like the scenes she did. And she did like 275 scenes, not film, scenes. But man, I loved her in those scenes. And I think she made a big difference in the industry. She was awarded, I think, Starlet of the Year at the AVN Awards recently in Vegas. The point is she was a rising star, and I was really into her. At some point a few weeks ago, I sent her a direct message on Twitter, and I joked about her last name. Her real name is Mercedes Grabowski. And I made a joke that if she ever wanted to marry me, she'd be Mercedes Benza, which is a great porn name. And she laughed and said something back to me that was cute. And then I noticed she had a butterfly tattoo on her foot, and so do I. That's kind of weird that two people would have the same tattoo. I got mine for an ex-girlfriend, and she got hers because she said butterflies made her feel free. So the night that she died, I didn't know what happened. I turned on the internet, that makes me sound old. I open my laptop and I see a headline, porn star found dead. And it's weird when you see your favorite porn star in a headline like that, you guys tend to think the porn star they like the most is their porn star. They forget that it's everybody's porn star. But when I see it, I yell out, "Holy shit, my favorite porn star is dead." And my wife, who's with my daughter 20 feet away, goes, "Really? That's what you're going to say out loud with your daughter here?" I said, "Sorry, honey." But look, I don't have an icky feeling about porn. I think porn saves marriages more than it hurts marriages. I don't got to bother my wife all the time. If I want a quickie, I'll do it myself. No fuss, no muss. I've always accepted it. I first went on a porn set way back in like 1986. I met Barbara Dare in Las Vegas at an adult video convention or some shit. I was working for a different kind of company back then, starting a magazine, and there was a lot of porn stars there. And she was signing headshots, and I said, "What a beautiful girl." So I got online like a schmuck and waited to get her signature on a headshot. And I knew, I said, when I got to her, she said, "You look like my ex-boyfriend, Ray Sharkey." Now, when a guy hears that, that's good, because that means the girl thinks you're handsome. I said, "One day I'm going to interview you and do a story on you. I'm a writer. I like to do an interview on you." She goes, "Okay, cool." She goes, "Hey, you know what? Do you want to see me work tomorrow?" I said, "You're working tomorrow?" "Yeah." "Okay." So I go to the set. Now, look, this is the big hair 1980s. This is the cocaine and the Waka Waka soundtrack. And Jerry Butler at the time was very big. He was there. Ron Jeremy, of course, was there. So I ended up seeing Barbara a couple more times when she came to New York for work. And eventually I divorced my wife in 91. And I started dating Barbara a little bit. This is the 1986 Starlet of the Year. So I felt like, well, I'm cool as shit. I got a porn star girl. But she was really a Jewish girl from New Jersey, Stacy Mitnick. Her father was a dentist. But I eventually took her home to meet my family, and we all went to dinner for New Year's Eve one night in Manhattan. You know, great big party. Happy New Year. I forget the year it was, but I eventually ran into Barbara in L.A. when I moved here, and I had that picture, and I said, "Let's have lunch. I want to show you something." I show her the picture, and she goes, "Oh, I fucking hate that picture." I said, "Why? You look beautiful." She goes, "I was on so much heroin back then." I said, "What? You were?" She goes, I was a junkie back then." I said, "I had no idea you were doing heroin." She goes, "Yeah, I was. Of course I was. I was smoking it. It was gross." Look, I couldn't tell it all, but the point is they're all in some kind of pain. I forget what Barbara's pain was, but August Ames hid her torture really well. Go look at her videos. There's especially one video where there's no sex at all. It's just her getting ready for a date with you, put it that way. She's talking to the camera, and she's putting on clothes, asking you how she looks. It's very, very cute and endearing, if you could believe that. She's talking to an imaginary guy. She sits in a beautiful car, and the car's moving, and they're getting ready to go to the dinner. And then they go to a restaurant, and she's eating a California roll. Then they get in the car, and they're at the beach, and August Ames is on the sand with the waves pounding and the wind blowing her beautiful brunette hair around, and you see that tattoo on her foot, and she looks so free and happy. I just feel like that's the way she must have looked and felt way before that disaster happened with her fucked up grandfather when she was a perfect little girl. But the acting, it's so natural and so real. Jennifer Lawrence wishes she could act this good. And August Ames had a dimple in her left cheek that could hold a cup of water. That tape she made is not for jerking off. It's for guys who hope to have a girl be that way with them, to have a girl be that happy to see them, and so willing to be free with them. That's what guys want more than anything. And I watched it again last night, and all I could think of was, fathers, be careful. I'm using August Ames' death as a wake-up call. I ain't the perfect dad, that's for sure. Are you? This is Fame is a Bitch. There's a story in my family I haven't told, but it's apropos, especially after that August Ames story. Sometime in the 1960s, my sister was on the subway in Brooklyn. She was about 20 or 21 at the time, and my sister Rosalie was gorgeous, and still is gorgeous at 70 years old. But anyhow, some fucking nut flashed her, literally opened his trench coat and exposed himself, old school style. So Rosalie's a tough cookie. She was upset, but she didn't crumble. She comes home and tells my father. She said, Daddy's on the subway every day, same car, same time. So the next day, my father jumped on the car with a couple of his brothers, a stop early, and told my sister to stay on. And this time they followed the guy off the subway all the way home. But he didn't quite make it home. Let's just say he never got to his apartment. My father and his brothers dragged him into a lot, put him on his back, and smacked the shit out of him and gave him a talking to. You like showing your prick to little girls? You want to show it to a father? And the guy was scared shitless. My father says, show it to me. Take your cock out, show it to me. Show it to me or I'll bust your skull wide open. So the guy does it. And when he did, my father took my sister's great big Christmas pin. Must have weighed 3 pounds. She used to wear it on a winter coat. And, well, you can imagine where he stuck that pin. A few times. Sounds harsh, but that guy never took the subway again with my sister. Anyhow, the point is this. Fathers, if your daughter ever works up the nerve and the courage to say she wasn't treated right by a man or abused by a man, don't call a lawyer. Call your brothers and handle it. I'm AJ Benza, and this is the podcast you can't get enough of. Fame is a bitch.